What happens when the divine speaks and you're the only one who hears it? Welcome to The Call, the podcast where we dive deep into the mysterious and often misunderstood experience of being called by God. Whether you're wrestling with a sense of purpose, navigating a spiritual awakening, or questioning if what you're feeling is real, you're not alone. In this podcast, we explore the obscurities of the divine calling, the isolation, the doubt, the strange timing, and the often inconvenient demands of sacred purpose. We'll speak with thinkers, believers, skeptics, and storytellers who wrestled with the weight of being chosen or feeling like they have. Because a calling isn't always clear. It's not always glorious. And it doesn't always come with a set of instructions. So lean in. This is not just about faith. It's about the human experience of being summoned by something greater. When the world stays silent, but your soul is on fire. Welcome to The Call. Welcome to The Call, a podcast about spiritual calling, sacred discomfort, and the strange yet beautiful tension of walking with God when the path is unclear. I am your host, Prophet Ken, along with my co-host, Elijah Mitchell. And today we continue with a question that echoes in many hearts, often in silence. What does it really mean to be called by God? We often hear this phrase tossed around in religious circles, called to preach, called to serve, called to go. But beneath the surface of this holy sounding language lies a maze of uncertainty, fear, and at times loneliness. For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew chapter 22, verse 14. That verse has haunted and comforted many people in equal measure. It raises an unsettling truth that not everyone who hears the call understands it, and not everyone who responds is ready for what follows. And so in episode 3, we tackle on yet another obscurity, and that being loneliness. Let us lean in. All right, welcome back, Bishop. Um, so today we are going to be delving into loneliness on this episode of the call for our podcast. As we discussed last week, um, being called has a few challenges or undertakings that one must embark upon, um, even in hearing the call, before one even answers the call. And one of the things that was expounded upon in our previous episode was the fact that Moses had to take this journey up the mountain and back down the mountain by himself. And so there was a loneliness, not just a season, not just a time, but seasons of loneliness that are often not talked about. I love the story of Moses, and I believe that we'll be there for a while. But I also look at Noah and his call in building the ark. No one had a reference, no one had a template, no one had the schematics, but Noah, or Elijah, hiding in a cave, crying out to die, feeling abandoned by everyone, even God. And then I think about in 1 Kings chapter number 19, Excuse me. Verse 10, it says, I have been very jealous for the Lord, and I, even I only, am left. And God didn't respond with a rebuke, but with a whisper, not by fire, not an earthquake, but a whisper. And sometimes when we are experiencing these seasons of loneliness, it is important that we do not forget that we are not alone. And it is often in these seasons of loneliness that God responds, not by thunder, not by fire, not with lightning or clashing, but in a small whisper. And so, if we're not listening, if we're not leaning in, we might miss the whisper. Um, because sometimes being the called, we need quietness, we need stillness more than clarity. And I say that because, as a person that considers himself to walk in the call of the Lord, I am learning that every day that I decide to obey and every day that I decide to walk, things become clearer. It's in my act of obedience, it's in God ordering my steps and me taking those steps that I see what was dimly lit in a mirror. And more in these steps, I come face to face with it. So I don't want to, I'm not the man of the hour. I don't have the revelation or the profound knowledge or the deep depths as my co-host. So I just wanted to say that and get out the way.
Listen, you be spending them because we don't really you don't really set me up with too much detail about what's next. So it's always interesting. The topic though, the loneliness that does come with calling, or as I was saying a lesson ago, purpose.
Hmm.
There is a there is a time, there are seasons because you experience it on a it comes and goes. You experience it often, especially as when you're in those seasons and those moments where you're growing. Sometimes in a room full of people, you can sing by yourself. So it's a very real thing where you need to grow accustomed to it, but also you you have to have the proper perspective because all of it um, is about perspective because the perspective is what will allow you to persevere and overcome so that one isn't consumed by the things that they experience. Um, so in saying that, when you were speaking, it was just I was contemplating and thinking about my many bouts with loneliness, uh, even to the day at times. You know, you go through it because we all see the world differently. You know, sometimes you can go through moments even when you're you can be in relationships. You can still be like, man, sometimes they just don't get it, and it's a challenge. Um, Especially when you are trying to lay hold to something, especially something that's never been done before.
That's
So
good.
it
Yeah.
is it is a challenge in its own right. Prime example of Moses, even Elijah, probably more prime example Elijah because he actually had that conversation with God, like, hey man, I done
Yeah.
did all of this and look at me. I'm in the cave hiding out. Like everybody else gone. Once again, perspective, because unbeknownst to him, what was God's response? I got 1,000. Like you ain't by yourself, bro. I got a whole crew that ain't bowed to me. Like I'm good.
Mm.
You good. But a lot of times, once again, having perspective, what keeps us from being consumed by the very real emotion that we face when facing loneliness. Um, if we're not in the proper place, we'll we'll do some things to try to combat that or remedy that. If we're going to keep it all the way real, we'll do some things to remedy that that'll take us out the way.
Yeah.
That's why I would like to pose this question to it. Is it really loneliness, or is it necessary for consecration so that you can maintain it? Because yeah, we can be around a bunch of people and be going through a whole lot of things, but people have a way to pull you.
Hmm.
And if the job is to be consecrated for purpose, to be set apart for purpose, you can't be around everybody.
Hmm.
So now that I've laid hold to consecration, I also have to be able to maintain it. I got to be able to stay in that place. What does that really mean? That means I have to make decisions, or hopefully in on my journey to God consecrating me and positioning me and setting me apart, He's already laid in me. Okay, I know I need to carry it like this. I can't be around this. I can't watch this. I can't really hear this. And once you get to understand yourself and know what can trigger you to be outside of the will of God, um, the loneliness, I believe, the loneliness becomes something you have to accept at times,
Mm.
because what you're looking to do is way more important than the enjoyment of it all, so to speak. So it's a varying of perspective, because all in all, you can say a lot of things, but you still experience it. It's still uncomfortable. It's still a challenge that has to be met. It's still a real feeling, and at times feeling so much that it's tangible. Um, it, it is a challenge. It is a challenge, because you hear the voices, you hear it gets quiet so many times, man. You can hear the doubt, even when you think
Hmm.
you ain't got none. You'd be surprised what it come out your mind sometimes. So it's a it's an excellent topic to delve into. Um,
Before
just
you move
as
on,
how many
I
minutes?
want to hone in on something that you said because I was just literally just thinking about the similar experiences that you and I have both had. And has someone set me to the side and enlightened me that the call, or being called and accepting the call, well, acknowledging the call first. And then, as you said, accepting it, knowing that within that call there is purpose. But in order to get to purpose, there's a preparation. And in that preparation, God separates us because we must come from amongst, as you said in our previous episode. And so, what they do not teach today is that there is a coming and pulling away. And so, we are estranged from our family, we're estranged from our past lifestyles, we're estranged from our past friends, those that are not in the same ranks, or in that same line or walk, in adhering that call, and then understanding, like you said, that there are levels and degrees to the call where I may be called to do something completely different, that I can't move like this no more. And so the call and the loneliness and the being set apart is not to hurt you, it's to build you. And I remember all of those years of loneliness, and I couldn't understand, God, why is it that I'm not in communication with my family? Why is it that? And it pushed me to build my own. It pushed me to do things ungodly, unrighteous, and unholy in a feeble attempt, because I did not have understanding that, God, this is what the call entails. And I said yes prematurely because I didn't know. And I probably would have said no, keep it a band, until I was more mature to be able to take on what was going to happen and to go through that process. And so we always say, oh, the call is lonely. We have all these stigmas and enigmas and proverbs, but we really don't help people understand the weight or what's required when you accept that call. Because church today is not how church was when we were growing up.
No, no,
They
no, no.
they doing any and everything.
It's a different world. And to your point, um, especially those of us that were called younger, or purpose was placed upon us at a younger age. Um, I mean, you never really know unless you really got somebody walking step for step for you with you, and really, hey, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. Be mindful of this or that. Um, you really don't know. And then there's one thing, even if you're able to sit and observe it until you go through it, you really don't know. And once again, not meant to harm or hurt, but we got to think about it like this. God called Abram from everything he knew. What we have to do is as believers, and what we have to do as people that have the weight of responsibility, is to say, well, and Bible scholars know the answer to this for the most part already. Why is it necessary that he get him away from everything that he knows? And the purpose of getting one away from everything that he knows is that so his supposed intelligence doesn't pollute what God is trying to get him to understand. Because if you're where you are, where you're comfortable, you may never move. You might not listen when God says go left. You might decide, well, my people over there, so I'm gonna make the right. My people
Yeah.
are gonna hold me down, you know. But that's why it's necessary for you to be set apart, because you and God got to get in a place where y'all communicate. You all, and that's the challenge for a lot of us, even now, call years in the game. It's still, you got to be in a place where you're hearing God, and you have to be able to discern what are the things of God and what is not of God. Because sometimes they can sound real close. And if your
Mhm.
ear isn't tuned,
Yeah.
if your spirit isn't tuned, if your heart isn't tuned, you may think it's God and it's not. It's the God of your understanding. It ain't God. And that's where we have to be so very careful. And that's why it's so important that, yes, that time away, not only does it happen, but it's necessary for
Mhm.
your growth and for your betterment. That way, when you speak, that way, when you're about doing your ministry, you can know that you're hearing from God. You can know you're following the directions from God and not necessarily yourself. Not to say that what you may have purpose in your heart or in your mind is evil or wrong, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to call themselves doing something for God and the blessing isn't coming with it.
That's right.
That defeats the purpose.
Hmm.
You know, you want whatever you're doing, you want it to bear fruit. So it's a scenario where I have to suffer this, or let it be so now so that this can transpire, or so that this can happen. Because at the end of the day, what is it about? If God is the one that's supposed to be getting glorified in all of it, and if he's saying, listen, I got to call you away so we can get you right in this area, you can't necessarily fight against it. You have to go with it. Now, I say all of that with years of understanding now.
Hmm.
And still at times I struggle. But when you're starting out, um, it's a very harrowing thing, because the why of it all doesn't necessarily make sense, because everybody wants to feel support. Everybody wants to feel like, okay, I ain't by myself in a thing, but you it don't work that way. Primarily because things get lost in the sauce. Things can get compromised. Thought processes can be perverted or subverted. And we have a real enemy that's looking to circumvent whatever processes to make it so that you think you're hearing from God, but you're not. That's
Hmm.
a primary reason why you're called away. because I got to get you away from those things. Because sometimes if mama got the right hold on you, mama sound like the stuff she's saying godly.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy sound like the stuff he's saying godly. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when it runs up against the word of God,
Yeah.
you'll be surprised what you find to actually be of God and of man. I
That's
know in my
good.
life, in my journey, um, and I'm a bishop's kid, but not everything you hear in church got anything to do with the Bible whatsoever. It sounds good, it sounds churchy, it makes you feel good, but when it runs up against life,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of falls to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really have any power. When it comes against the things that we go through on our daily, we find that it doesn't really do anything for us, because when we go and we dive into the scriptures, we find that, oh wow, that really didn't have any bearing like that. The power won't in that. The power is going to always be in the word of God. So we have to be very careful, and while we're talking about loneliness, we got to make sure we shape it and we frame it in a way that we understand that, listen, it's not that it's meant to harm by far. It's meant for our betterment, especially for
Mm-hmm.
some of us, because some of us can't work in the crowd.
Very true.
Some of us can't work in the crowd. Sometimes we at our best when it seems like we ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
That's when we grinding. When it feel like we ain't got no team, that's when we roll, and that's when we are more obedient.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about it like this: God is going to make sure He gets whatever He's trying to get about you. So if I got to keep you away to make sure that you're hearing and you're doing as God would have you to do, guess what? You're going to spend some time away, because that's just how it has to be. Because at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, God is about getting His glory, but then most importantly, He's not setting any of us up to fail.
That's right.
He's not doing that. Um, so it's very important that we have we take on the right mindset, and it requires so much of being humble, because
Mm-hmm.
you got to trust that God knows what He's doing. Even early
Yeah.
on, you have to really, you got to set yourself in such a way, because you're saying, God, all right, you got this, so I'm going to do what you're saying. I'm going to humble myself to whatever it is that you're
Mm-hmm.
calling, or you're requiring of me, so that I can meet whatever purpose that you have for me. It just so happens that doing this, sometimes there are moments and seasons where, yeah, you feel lonely.
Yeah.
It's just it comes with it.
Yeah. I think that's important what you said, that some of us are better in private than in public. And it made me think about something I had wrote. And I'm going to just read it. It says that purpose is refined in private before it's revealed in public. And I love that the Lord allows us to grow in private. And while that's our comfort zone, it's still preparing us to do ministry, not just in public, but um, for our ministry with others. And I, I like to say that in this season, like God's given me time, and this isn't good theology or philosophy. All right, so don't y'all go around quoting me or saying, "Well, the bishop's son and the pastor's son said we can go do this." But I do understand that this has been a season where the Lord, and seasons past where the Lord allowed me to kind of like refine my tools or experiment, if you will, behind the scenes before placing me on bigger platforms. And I remember I used to have this discontentment um, because pre life circumstances, I was singing and doing all these things in front of all these people. And then I find myself now in a season where I'm like, Lord, like, when you gonna let me loose? When you gonna let me loose? And so this has comforted me and to work fervently behind the scenes in private, because it's what we do when no one is looking. I believe that God honors the most, is where God gets the most glory, but also where we're refined and developed and cultivated the most. So to your point, um, I know me, when I first knew that I was called, well, that's what they said. I didn't really accept it. I didn't really think anything was special about me. But I was doing things in private, and I never wanted to do anything in public. I was very shy, believe it or not, when I was young. As a child, I was very shy. But when they gave me that mic, you know, I was very timid. But I look at myself now, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm ready. You know, like, you can't get me to shut up for real, for real. It's not too many people that I'm quiet in a room with, you know, with the exception of you or people that I really respect, because I want to hear what they have to say, he or she has to say. But I thank God for those seasons. I'm able to thank Him now for those seasons where He put me to the side to work on me and for me to work out things, lest I fumbled, lest His name be defamed. Like you said, lest the religious enigmas and quote unquote religious sayings and people's philosophy mixed with God's doctrine might have been the truth that I stood on. So it was in those times that I got to know Him for myself, that I got to, as you said, leverage it with the word and in the word. And if it's not in the word, then I abandoned it. And of course, everything's not going to be black and white in the word, but we ought to trace it to the word. We ought to be able to trace it to the word. And our moral conscience just bears witness on us with those things that aren't just spelled out in black and white in the Bible. But I can say now that I appreciated those almost 10 years of solitude, of being estranged from my family and childhood friends and the world at large. And I've come to appreciate it. And now I can say, like, I'm not rushing to do anything. I joke with my mom all the time and my wife and my sister. And I say, you know, while God is yet still refining and working on me, I do not care if I have to wait until I'm 96 years old to step into destiny. As long as God gets every ounce of glory out of my life, so be it. Because I don't want anybody to be turned away by my teachings, by my praying, by my singing, by anything that I do and offer in the name of the Lord, right? Because so many people are doing so many things in the name of the Lord as opposed to partnering with Him. And so, you know, I can say now that I'd rather God get all the glory when I'm ready. And of course He knows that when I'm ready, and when it's time, than me to do something prematurely because I want a mic in my hand or because I want to be on a platform. I fear God too much now. I can say that honestly, where before I didn't even consider it. I had a word and I wanted to share it. And the word wasn't always right. Just to be completely, it was mixed up with what I wanted and what I did. And then I sprinkled a little Bible on it, you know what I'm saying? So supporting scripture to support me. But so I love that you talked about those private moments. So yeah.
Hey, I get it. I remember early on, um, as I was coming to grips with God still looking at me and saying, "This is good ground." And because we go through things in life, and things can make you question if purpose is still a part of your life. And I know in my life, I've done some things, been and had things have happened that I struggled with. Where God, am I in a place where I could still be of use? And I would struggle when people would come and, man of God, you know, this, a man of God, that, and I would just be looking like, y'all don't even understand. And because I had separated myself, not even necessarily for consecration purposes, I just had separated myself so much from the thing that I knew the most, because my life had took me through such a course. Ain't no way I'm good over here. Ain't no way purpose still exists for me over in this lane. So I'm gonna just rock out over here. Am I going as hard as some others going over here in this area? No. But I can figure out how to be cool over here. And that just got by me. I got to a
Mm.
place where I could accept that. And the the great thing about God is that God keeps the thing coming around, man. And even in this particular dispensation of my life, I like I said before, I've been trying just to chill.
Mm.
Like I some things that came into my hand. I'm just trying to chill. Life has been
Yeah.
rough a little bit. I'm cool with the time out. And I'll figure it out. But the more I sit and I conversate and I look and I listen, um, the more I hear God, the more I feel the pull of God, and the more I still hear you're still good ground. There's still fruit in you. In my private times, in my quiet times, um, that's why with the loneliness, God still provides such an awesome level of comfort. Because He's told me that there's still purpose, you know. Um, and it's important that you know that. It's important that you understand that. That's why you got to get in that place where, yeah, the loneliness is real, but you got to learn how to sit in that silence so that you can learn how to be calm in it, so that you can learn how to be quiet in it, so that you can hear when God is trying to comfort you. And I'll say try concerning God, because if we're not listening, He don't get to be effective. It ain't that He can't do it. I'm using the
Yeah.
word try more so on our end,
On our
because
end.
if we're in that place, and if we're so concerned about the fact that I'm separated and I'm by myself, and God, I'm by myself, we're not hearing when God is talking and trying to comfort us and give us what we need. We're too
Mm.
consumed with what we consider to be the reality of our situation in that moment.
Hmm.
So that's why it's so important that the framework of our thinking be properly set up. The loneliness, yes, real thing. Are we to get stuck on it? No. It's about us. It's just like accepting anything else. This is what come along with it at times. You're going to have times, you're going to have great moments with people, and you're going to have times where you're going to be by yourself. And in those moments where you're by yourself, that's when the work is going to be getting done to make sure that everything that's in you is where it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
Everything that is going on with you. Because you got to think about it like this: if you never spend those times by yourself with God, we're human. We're prone to bad decisions, saying the wrong thing, all these things.
Hmm.
We would much rather God deal with us in private and to the
Hmm.
side than for us
Yeah.
to fumble that ball while thousands or hundreds of people are watching, or able
Yeah.
to say, well, "Ooh, look at what he did." Oh my, we know how people are.
Hmm.
So it makes more sense that God separates us for a minute. Let me get you out the eyesight of your people real quick. Let me get you outside the eyesight of the churchgoers real quick. Let me get you out the eyesight of the world, and let me move these things around. That way, when you could, because we got to listen, God to protect us in those times by making sure I'm gonna work on you in private, but I'm gonna allow the world to see the finished product.
Hmm.
While the whole time we got all sorts of confusion going on in us,
Yeah.
but God allowed the world to see this is the man or woman of God that I call.
Mm.
They won't know that He's been over here poking and prodding, making us uncomfortable on the inside. But uncomfortability for us, glory for Him.
Hmm.
All the while, He's covering us
Mm.
while we go through that transition to the side.
Yeah.
While everybody seems around us, everybody smiling, hey, yay, yay. God is working on us because we're the one accountable for the work. And we still got to work while this is happening now. Ain't nobody say he took you to the side and you still ain't ministering. No, 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 no. That ain't how it works. You still got to get your hands dirty and still be off to the side while he's fine tuning, while he's pulling things out, while he's putting things in. You talking about open? It's basically open heart surgery while you still got to go to work.
Hmm.
When people are saying, God, take those things out me. That's not like you. How you think that's transpired? And you would much rather him do that in private than be doing
Absolutely.
that because a lot of times the things that get used, he uses the day-to-day things to help extrapolate those things or help us to acknowledge, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't have it like that. I gotta pivot from this way of thinking because it doesn't benefit me in the long run. I have to abandon this way of speaking because it
Hmm.
hinders me when I'm trying to get a point across. I
Yeah.
gotta I gotta abandon how I see myself at times because it
Mm.
hinders my faith. It hinders my ability to talk right. It hinders my ability to function properly because there's times when I have a negative outlook of myself. And that negative outlook immediately goes against the things of God or how God sees me. So I'm not able to talk faith because I'm occupying this place. Guess what God is trying to do? I got to get you to get rid of that. So what does God oftentimes have to do? Let me get you away for a second. Come
Hmm.
talk to me for a minute. Yes, it's quiet over here. It need to be because we forget, man. Listen, if we don't have those moments of quietness, you'll just keep going. You'll just keep doing. And at the end of the day, we don't think about it when we're younger, but when we get to a certain age, you really get to asking yourself, man, was any of that stuff worth it?
Mm.
Was any of that stuff really bearing fruit? Was any of that stuff really, man, I got days now. I sit back and I say, wow, there was something different about getting up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning then that I fight so hard to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was I was able to be so much more consistent then
Mm.
in a place that was meant to break me. I was
Mm.
able to be so much more consistent in my likeness and my manner of what I knew I needed to be doing, and I'm here in a different set of in a completely better circumstance. And this is what Moses said was so important. He told the people various times. He told the people this, and I'm paraphrasing what I'm getting ready to say. He said, lest ye forget all that God has done from bringing you out of Egypt, allowing you to go into the land of Canaan, allowing you to subvert all your enemies, and God blessing your house, God blessing your homes, allowing you to be fruitful and multiply. You
Hmm.
eating well, you doing good. Lest ye forget. That's why we get all the way to the book of Revelation. He said, listen, you got to go back to the first work. Why? Because the first work, that's where the passion was at.
Hmm.
That's why
Hmm.
sometimes when he pulls us aside, and while we got to change our mentality concerning being lonely, because it's for our ability to be consecrated, and then secondly for our ability to maintain it. But then in my mind, it's also for our ability to be able to keep first things first. And first things being first sometimes is just us making sure we really are loving God with all our heart, mind, and soul.
Hmm.
Loving our neighbor as, I mean, just doing the first things
Yeah.
because life is something, man. Life gets in the way. These folk out here is different. You can think you all right with God and you holding something in their heart. You and God got a wall in between y'all, and you don't even know
Mm.
because you didn't have these interactions. That's why the separation. Yeah, you lonely, But guess what? I got to pull you over here, even in your mindset. I got to pull you over here. That way, that stuff can't get to you. The loneliness protects you
Yeah.
because if you're
Yeah.
away, how can they get to you? If
Mm.
you're someplace else in your mind, how can they get to you? If you're someplace else in your heart, how can they get to you? If you're someplace else in your spirit, how can they get to you? Yeah, it's loneliness, but guess what God is doing? You call it loneliness, I'm hiding you.
Mm.
Why? So the enemy can't get to you through all the nouns, people, places, and things. Because that's how we get God, through the nouns. It's the people, places, and the things always.
Mm.
And I go a step further. People, places, and things in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we got to really make sure the perspective concerning what the loneliness is
Mm-hmm.
viewed through the proper lens. Because where we're saying loneliness, God is saying, no, baby, I'm covering you. I'm
Yeah.
keeping you. I'm
Mm.
holding you up. I'm setting my
Mm.
standard in front of you. I'm standing before you. We say we want God, oh, be a banner for me. God, be a standard before me. Guess what that means? Somebody got to be in front of you, and
Yeah.
I got to cover you. I got to
Yeah.
get you out the way. Because if I don't, you think you really go back to take all the fiery darts of the wicked one for real?
Mm.
You think you built like that? And ain't none of us Jesus last time I checked. He got to come back. Once again, while the mentality, the framework, the perspective of the mind, it has to be shaped properly because we are assigned a word, but that ain't what God is saying he's doing.
Mm.
That's why it matters. Am I saying what I want to say, or am I saying what God is saying?
Absolutely. That's good. I I thought you was getting ready to preach us into a revival. I was
Nah, it
that
really got upon
loneliness.
me for
Ooh.
real because it's we got to be careful because we in our
Mm-hmm.
especially with our words. And at the end of the day, it's about God being glorified in it all. And it
Mm-hmm.
came to me as I was rolling, it was just no, say this.
Yeah.
It matters. Just because we say something is like that, that don't mean that's what God has said is like that. And that's
Absolutely.
something that we have to be as believers, we have to be also very careful of.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you say is that, or we've assigned the negative connotation to it because we may not like the experience, that
Mm-hmm.
don't mean God said that is that.
Mm.
And a lot of times the things I remember back in the day, I'm gonna take you back one time. I'm gonna age myself a little bit. I'm gonna take you back. Boy, listen, I remember being a youngin', and one time I wasn't feeling good. I was at my grandma's house. God bless her. She's not here no more. Miss her every day. But man, listen, the first time I ever had castor oil the day of my life, listen, fam, that was life changing. Um, that changed some things in my perspective. A, I was gonna never take it again. B, I was never trying to be sick again, not around her anyhow. But it was disgusting.
Yeah.
But guess what it wound up being? The best thing that I could have did because guess what it did? It took care of the problem.
Mm.
And sometimes it's the thing that I'll say is nasty when God is saying, listen, bro, that's what you need.
Mm.
God, I don't want to do this. This hurts. It's what you need. God, I don't
Yeah.
want to do this. It makes me angry or it brings confusion to me. Is what you need because you're not really confused. The problem is you don't want to do what you know you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't want to do this because I don't get to have him or her. Is
Mm-hmm.
what you need because you ain't ready for neither. So
Mm-hmm.
see, the loneliness is where that conversation with God that we be ducking, bobbing and
Yeah.
weaving. That's where that comes from. The spirit will drive you there. Why? Because you and God need to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Because you is until God returns, none of us. is perfect. We're all at varying levels of our maturity and our walk with God in this wonderful thing called life.
Hmm.
The most interesting journey I've ever been on in my entire life is living this thing called life. The ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys. We're all going to scramble. I don't care who you are. It may not be on the front page of the news, but what you got going on in yourself. So we got to always, he's going to always be fine tuning us. But what we have to do as responsible believers,
Hmm.
we got to make sure we have the proper perspective. We got to make sure we have the proper mentality concerning these things,
Yeah.
because we go through these things and sometimes we don't come out as we should. We
Hmm.
come out feeling a negative when the intention and the purpose was for it to be very positive. It was for your growth. It was for so that you may bear fruit, not for you to feel abandoned. Now, the
Yeah.
enemy will come and try to introduce, excuse me, I'll try to introduce some things to us. But once again, that ain't what God said.
Mm. I wanna. I love that you shed light to loneliness, or gave loneliness a positive light as it relates to God protecting us from things, because it can often seem like, as you said, times and seasons and moments of being just abandoned. Um, I was also thinking while you were speaking, the challenges that persist in loneliness, the challenge of because for those of us, and when people get to the point and they realize, hey, there's something special inside of me, and as these moments and seasons or and times of loneliness or God pulling us to the side begin to cultivate us, we begin to see the greatness
Mm.
inside of ourselves. There comes a time you can't. It is impossible. It's humanly impossible to not see what God has deposited inside of you once you're spending that time with Him. Once you've accepted. Once you see the call. Once you hear it. Once you recognize it. Once you accept it. And once you start walking this journey out and being prepared. And so I was thinking about the challenges that persist um, as it relates to greatness in private, and how we have to learn how to combat these things off. And I just have three things that I thought about, even with myself, that I had to war with within myself. And that being a lack of recognition, and then the internal battles, fear, doubt, insecurities, those things that plague us, and then the seasons that of loneliness that requires us to wait without clarity. And um, then the biggest one, I'm sorry, I lied. Four, how we have to be, how God gives us and cultivates us to be disciplined over our desires. And you were talking about how we have to spend that time with God. We have to have that conversation. That's what Adam was ducking in the garden. He did not want to have that conversation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm out on a wing right now. I'm out on a limb. God called God called Adam, and although Adam engaged the Lord, he did not come to him the way that he ought to. And so, although words transpired, a real conversation never really happened. It was just blame shifting. And of
Why?
course, in my mind, I always look at it: what if Adam had just came to the Lord broken and with a contrary spirit? Of course, things would be completely different. And so,
But what
one,
did
not
Adam do?
ducking. Go ahead.
But what did Adam do? Because see,
He
you
shift
wanna
blame.
you but why? Now we're gonna get someplace, because we got to think about it like this. All right, God called Adam. Adam pulls up. You said words were spoken. True. The
Hmm.
problem is, the issue is, and you said it, The conversations weren't as before.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And this is what sin does. Sin introduces fear to the one that you're accountable to.
Mm.
If there's fear,
Yeah.
that means there's doubt. If
Mm-hmm.
there's doubt, lack of faith, lack of trust, lack of love. There's no way I'm able to occupy these places because my fear is sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
He opened his mouth and his fear came out.
Mm.
That's what we have to understand happened there.
Mm.
He opened his mouth and fear came out. God said, where you get that from? That's basically what happened.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. Mm.
He opened his mouth and fear came out. What did he say? God, the woman you gave me. His
Mm-hmm.
fear got him to blame God for the situation he was in.
Mm.
When what was he supposed to do? Christ gave the greatest example. When they were stripping, he hanging on the cross. What did he say? Forgive them,
Forgive
for
them.
they know not what they do. Lord, listen, we were stripping.
Mm.
Have mercy upon us. But what did he do? See, taking accountability and saying, God, we were stripping, you can still be speaking faith in that. Because
Yeah.
God, I'm trusting you to be able to be God and know that we was
Mm-hmm.
tripping. But if I open my mouth and I say, God, the woman you, that's my fear. That's
Mm.
my doubt. That's me trying to shift it up off me. That's not me taking accountability for it all.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me walking in purpose because you got to walk in purpose, whether right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You got to walk in your calling, whether right or wrong. But it's going to always be about right or wrong to who.
Mm.
Because the issue with us as believers, sometimes we get too worried about the people that look like us
Yeah.
instead of worrying
Yeah.
about the one who created us.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we sometimes get it confused. We've given sometimes these people and these authorities on this planet way more cachet over our lives and how we conduct our business than the one who created us and sitting in judgment on us.
Mm-hmm.
We get the game confused, and that's what Adam did. Adam spoke his faith. He spoke
Mm.
his doubt rather, and then speaking that fear, speaking his doubt, speaking his anxiety, speaking his worry.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be speaking, God, listen, it was me. He had the opportunity. God, it was me. I didn't do my job.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing for God to ever say to Eve at all if Adam is already there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have to understand in that moment where, because you can still speak faith and be in a place where someone would say, man, he dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Two things can be true at the same time. You can still be, you can still be looked at as wrong and you straight. You don't believe me? Look at Job.
Mm.
Everything Job said won't right. He didn't say everything right, but he maintained a place because this is the word that's going to pop off. He's going to maintain a place of humility in himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because what does he say? What does Job say initially? Shall I receive good and not bad, evil from the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
He understood where it all came from. Adam lost that place for a moment in time in himself, to
Mm-hmm.
where he was able to keep himself in keep himself in such a place where, because first and foremost, Adam, who you think you is talking about God, the woman you gave me? Who was you?
Facts.
You tripping?
Big
If
facts.
anything else, shut up. You know what I'm saying? I remember being young, man. Pop come in the room, who did X, Y, Z? Man, best thing to do sometimes just be quiet, man. Just, hey, man, keep your head down, let the words be few. You know what I'm saying? And hope this thing just sort itself out. You know what I'm saying? And it's those moments though where we really got to see it's the humility of it all sometimes. Because you said something that was very interesting to me when you were highlighting the those things that list of things that you say you go through.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing, I want you to get back to your point, but I want to hit that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to be careful of as people because we'll work.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work and we'll work, we'll grind in the name of whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, is recognition important?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it cannot impact what you're doing
Mm.
because there's a world and there's a reality, especially in today's time. You can run yourself into the ground and nobody will ever say good job. That's why it
Mm.
matters. Who are you doing what you're doing for?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why that place of low estate, that place of being humble, because as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're humble, you'll work.
Yeah.
Once again, I see you always get back to Moses and do some work. Lest ye forget.
Lest you forget.
See, when you humble, you'll always work
You always remember.
because you're always remembering what God brought me out of X, Y, and Z, man. I'm
Mm.
grinding, man. God did this. I'm grinding, man. I don't even see y'all. I'm grinding.
Mm.
And then guess what? I'm gonna hit on another point you had. God, you got me waiting. All right, I'm prepping for the next thing. Why? Because we got to think about it like this. He brought you out and set you up. But guess what he set you up to do? More work. So
Yeah.
while he done brought me out and I'm grinding, and he done made it so okay, I don't got to grind as hard as I once did. So now if I'm in this place where it seems like I'm waiting, guess what is the responsibility of the man or woman of God while they wait? Their job is to prepare with the right mindset. It is not to sit there and keep singing, God, I'm waiting on you. No, it ain't. You supposed to be preparing because when he gave you one purpose, guess what? There were some things in there that had steps to them.
That's right.
Just because you got that one thing done, that don't mean you finished.
Mm.
You just looking for God to come in and give you the clap on the back. Good job. No, you tripping. Prepare. Because if you don't, guess what the waiting feel like? Loneliness. You feel abandoned. And guess what that
Mm-hmm.
does? Because we're not preparing, because preparation means I'm still focused on what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
That's what preparation means. Preparation says, okay, and this is I don't even think we ain't supposed to be here, but we going here anyhow. Preparation says that I understand that God is moving. Preparation says I'm getting this ready over here. So
Mm-hmm.
when God swings back this way, I'm in step with God's timing. So he's able to next time he take a step, he's able to take me with him because I'm
Mm.
ready over here. It ain't that
Yeah.
I got to get ready over here. I'm ready over here because
I'm ready.
when I was waiting, I had the right mindset. I had the right heart set. I had the right spirit set to know, okay, God got me posted up in the corner. I'm getting right on during this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to spend this time complaining. I'm not going to spend this time sitting there tarrying and worrying about what ain't happening. God, I'm getting ready over here.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I know when my time come, I want to be ready. When you say go, I don't want to have to go get the bag. The bag already at the door. I don't want to have to say I left my Jordans in the car. I already got them on.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important for the man and woman of God to understand. Anybody that's in any place where they feel like they are suspended animation, you have to prepare because you are not as ready as you think you are.
Yeah. That's good.
You're just not.
Mm. That's good. That's good. I know we're winding down on time, and we're gonna have to make this a part two of loneliness. But as we're bringing this to a close, I have just a few questions before you do something a little different for our audience, I want you to think about this um, in preparation for our next podcast. What habits are you building in private that no one sees? Are you ready for the weight of public influence? Or are you still in a preparation season? And how can you stay rooted in God regardless of who's watching? And so, although loneliness can be such a daunting time, season, moment, as Elijah said and continues to echo, we must have the proper perspective. And I want to add to that, we must have the proper philosophy as well, that will guide us and allow us to not only posture our heart, our mind, our body, our soul, and our spirit, right? But our thoughts, because oftentimes it's our thoughts that scream in the loudest in those moments, because it is possible to sit still and then your thoughts are screaming, do other things, or do this, or do that, or why this, or why that. Because I remember when I was forced to sit down for almost 10 years and my thoughts were still screaming. And then those thoughts became actions, and those actions brought about decisions that were not always favorable. And so there's an unlearning and a relearning that takes place in those seasons and times of loneliness. And so I want to encourage us to um, not just because loneliness is inevitable, but to embrace the loneliness. And so with that, Elijah, you have any final thoughts?
No, man, I'm always glad to be here, man. This is an interesting topic. Um, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we're while discussing this topic, when
Hmm.
we step away from it, I just care to make sure that the mentality and the psychology, so to speak, is where it needs to be, so that
Hmm.
we can still, in the face of this particular topic, we're still moving in a positive manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been a privilege. It has been an honor to glean upon this subject topic, loneliness. I think we're just grazing the. I think we've just grazed it just a little bit. So I think it'll be befitting for us to continue on with this loneliness, and I'll pick up my thoughts, and then I know that you'll have several thoughts birthed from that and that stirring as well. And so. Um, Until next time, we thank you. We appreciate you for viewing. Make sure you head over to the YouTube channel at Kavad 365 Ministries so that you can get episode 1, 2, and of course 3. Watch it again and again. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, follow, hit that notification so that you can receive an alert whenever new content is being uploaded. You can also go to www. I think I said too many W's. www.kavod365.com. Head over to services and you'll be able to access it that way as well. Until next time, it's been a privilege. All right. God bless.